Case management means that's actually an add-on to Plone Intranet that was not foreseen from the beginning, but it turned out that in organizations, it's very often the questions come up, does it support our processes? How can we model our processes? And we found quickly that we need to support that in some way or the other. If you have seen Guido's State of Intranet talk, this is the module that mainly addresses orange organizations, organizations that are very goal-oriented or result-oriented and still needs to exert a certain amount of control over their processes. In Plone, we have a very good support for workflows already with DC Workflow. We extended that a little bit, but because Guido did not show anything about the state of Plone Intranet, and this is also a case study for the first project done with Plone Internet, I'm invested a minute to show you quickly through the current state of Plone Internet as it is implemented. Guido only showed slides from the prototype, which includes something that we want to do. This is what we actually have at the moment. So what you saw here is real data on a real production system in use at the moment. It has been done for a Catholic Church Synod in Switzerland, and they are effectively using it very much even with a social stream. They are posting, you saw a little comic about some priests in between. They're having a good time actually posting stuff. And the first question was, if I post something, how can I make sure everybody who needs to see it also sees it? When we told them this is not about making sure somebody sees something, this is about communication like at the coffee table, they loosened up and suddenly started using it really for fun. And when you use something for fun, then real information is flowing. So that already worked. It is running on Plone Internet 1.0 beta 1. That is the version you can find on PyPy at the moment. It also uses pattern slip 2.0, which is compatible with the Plone mockup stuff. It features a dashboard, collaboration in workspaces, a library, search, user profiles, apps, and the case management. So I'll pick that up right away. What is the current state of workflow in Plone? That's the main topic of my talk. And to address that, I have to talk a little bit about different types of workflow. I want to start with a structured workflow. That means you actually know everything in advance. You can plan it. You can model it. There are no exceptions possible unless you know them in advance. And this is what you can do with DC Workflow in Plone. If you have worked with workflow before in Plone, it's most likely you have worked with DC Workflow, and you model states and transitions, and you can define from which state you can switch into which other state, and connected to this state you can assign permissions. And this is very powerful because you can actually change how your system behaves depending on the different states. I want to give a very quick example right away without too much theory for the 4 eyes principle. Basically, it means that you have 2 people who cross-check your content before publication, right? So in my example, you have an object that is in new state. When you are done editing it, you submit it, which means from your point of view, it is complete. Then somebody comes and does the QA. That could be like the boss does not want to see spelling mistakes or so. So you have perhaps a secretary also looking or reviewing your content, correcting all the spelling mistakes. And then it's reviewed, and then the boss looks at it and says, okay, I approve this, and we can start spending the money. It's not that easy. There is much more normally. So the boss could say, could reject it because it's not complete yet, or he thinks that that's way too much money. The QA person, of course, says, fix your spelling yourself. That's way too bad language. You should have done better. And of course, you can retract yourself because you've forgotten something. Then there is always the situation that in every state you could just decide this is outdated, not relevant, whatever, it needs to be trashed. So suddenly your workflow becomes quite complex. However, we still have this happy flow that normally, probably 80% of our cases will go from new to complete to reviewed to approved. Because we're not beginners, right? We more or less know how to do our job. All these other transitions should be the exception. However, the possibility that you can do so many nice transitions and do basically all the steps that you want often leads to kind of crazy workflows. And this is mainly because you can. You do your workflow and you go to the other department and they say, yes, but in our case, we have this exception. It needs to be modeled. Actually, the bottom line under this is, and this is the point where our workflow design team went crazy. I looked a bit around about add-ons, additional add-ons on workflows for Plone, and I found AlphaFlow from 2005. Zagi wrote this line. He's actually sitting outside. You can ask him. That many standards and standardization processes, working groups, and products are available. Many of them are more complicated than necessary without fulfilling the promised goals. This is exactly what that image before showed. It might model everything that's possible in your organization, but most of the time you're not going to need it, right? And it will certainly not support your users. Much more often what you need is actually an unstructured workflow, because you do not necessarily know in advance what is the next step. A letter comes in, you read it, and you think, they want money. Okay, from which pot do they want that money? Who is responsible for this? So you cannot really say if there's a letter that comes in, I have to do that step. Otherwise, you could probably immediately automate that person away. No, you have to read that letter and you have to make some decisions and pass it to the next person, which then puts in their information and hands it to the next person again. So it's actually the people on the way that decide where that document is going. That's a very agile way of doing workflow. This is more the notion of having a file in my hand. I'm making my notes, I'm putting my paper in, and I hand it to the next person, and that person hands it to the next person, and so on. Of course, this also has a drawback. What very well may happen in such a situation in any country is something like this, because these files then tend to go around all the time because nobody is really either able or does not want to do that last 5% to actually close it. And you get into never-ending cycles. That's when you have this implemented, then you want something of that structured DC workflow back. So you need actually both. You need to combine them, right? And that's where the Metromap project comes in, what we did as an add-on to Plone Intranet. It combines the best of both worlds. It honors the fact that there will always be some external constraints that you have to follow. Could be legislation, could be some rules of your stakeholders, typically things that are non-negotiable. But on the other hand, you want to empower your people internally. You have hired staff, which is competent, and there's at least should be a certain trust that they know what they're doing, that they can do their job properly. So you actually want to support them instead of prescribe what to do. This is why we called it Metromap, because it very much looks like a Metromap. And these bubbles on the lines are actually the states in the DC workflow. So we say there are some mandatory steps that you have to follow. And in this case, this is quite a complex workflow that starts with creating a case. Then somebody will work on it. That's a little happy guy there. Somebody will do the QA, which is kind of cleaning up the mess so that the big boss can take a look. Afterwards, when the big boss is done, you usually need to clean up again, right? And then you'll do the paperwork, and in the end, you're going to archive it. That's our process. And depending on every stage, there need to be assigned some permissions that only the relevant people are allowed to actually edit that. So we need the permission part of the DC workflow. But then, within a phase, it is completely up to the team what they do. So we have these little filled bubbles here in our Metromap. And these little bubbles are actually tasks. And there's not much magic about it. This is just tasks. The only difference is that we are allowed to assign tasks to states in the workflow, or to milestones, how we call it. And these tasks can be assigned to some people again, and they can have deadlines. And the people in the team, everybody who has added permissions in that phase, is actually allowed to add tasks, to edit tasks, to close tasks, even to remove tasks, because it's in their responsibility. It's just to support them to remember what they have to do. There's a little support. You are not allowed, or you're not able, to switch a milestone into the next phase before all these tasks are closed. But nobody prevents you again to just close them all if you want. Yeah? This is that way because we want to support people remembering what they have to do in that phase, but not force them to do it. And this also addresses the fact that no two workflows usually are the same. Yeah? In the in-progress phase, in that situation, you have to do 2 tasks. In the next situation, you might have to do 10 tasks. So this is how it looks like assigning tasks to states or to milestones. Yeah, there's not much more to it. The close milestone buttons become first available when all the tasks are closed. And of course, we have support for the managers. Another nice side effect of this Metromap is that it actually looks like a progress bar. What you see here is the Case Manager app. It lists all the cases, all these case blocks for every case that you have searched for or filtered for in the sidebar. And a manager can make a selection on the cases he's interested in and sees immediately what the progress is. And if there are some cases that are not progressing as quick as the manager wants, then he can of course contact the responsible people and ask what's going on here, can we speed that up, and so on. We can even collect some statistics to give an overview. And the nice thing is this is exactly the same Metromap as on the case itself, so it's clickable. What you might now say is, what about all the other transitions that you can have in DC Workflow? what is about archiving something, what is about rejecting. Because workflow is quite a complex topic, we have decided that we are only going to model the happy flow. That is the process that a case normally will take. I actually don't really need all the transitions to roll something back. I basically need the permission to reopen a milestone, also go back, and unless my workflow is 20 or 30 states long, it's just a few clicks more to reopen several phases if I want to. So I actually don't need to model any transitions back. And to archive something, I don't need to model that here either, because once a case is archived, it's just not shown anymore. So the archive or the trash case button, they're just buttons in the settings, and if I press them, the case is gone. No need to have a line for that, right? There is a limitation, of course, that if you actually have really complex workflows that allow different routes, then the modeling capabilities of this will come to their limits. However, I would argue that, again, in probably 80% of the cases where you model a workflow, you will have a happy flow in one way or the other. And then you can use this Metromap. The question I have heard again and again is, when we use Plone Intranet, what is actually the role of the integrator? Or is that just solving all the problems? Do the customers still need us? And especially in the case management, yes. Case management is massively flexible because it only gives you a concept. It gives you a combination of the tasks with DC workflow to create a combination of structured and unstructured workflow. But you still need to create that. There might be workflow designers out there, graphical workflow designers, but the only thing they give you is to model states and transitions and how they hang together. But permissions and roles are complex. You cannot do that graphically. First of all, to model that, you need to do generic setup. You need to go into the ZMI to do that. No customer will do that himself, actually. Let alone actually understanding first what the necessary permission and role assignments are. So there is a big part of consulting involved here. The workflow design is delicate. Many things can go wrong, and if customers think they have gotten it right, as soon as they test it in real life, they have missed a lot. So that's where they need support. And of course, I have not yet seen a company that came to us with a clear definition what a process is. They have an idea what they probably want to have, but then it takes meetings over meetings over meetings until this is finished. This was actually also the case with the ICAF project. We have more or less spent the whole 7-8 months discussing these workflows over and over again, and have been modifying them. But since end of September, they are running that in production now. They have already created about 40, 50 such cases. They are using these cases in council sessions. They have to adhere to this workflow because as a church, they have to follow the same legislation requirements as the government and the same transparency rules. So they have to be able to document that they have followed these different steps and created protocols and so on. But again, as long as they follow these predefined steps, their cases may differ. So there's also a templating folder where you can create your template cases. And then when creating a new case, people just pick from these case templates and they get a new case pre-populated with a certain set of tasks in them already. And then they usually only have to add 1 or 2 more tasks or remove some. That's very, very easy. Yeah, these are screenshots of the little of the little video just before. This is real data in here. The installation is not simple, but not overly complex either. It runs Plone Intranet, latest version. We have a classic deployment with a CO server, a memcached, a Solar. As you might have seen, we are generating these preview images for all the Office documents. That must happen asynchronously. So there's a Celery and Redis service to do that. Front end is Nginx Varnish HA proxy. Again, nothing special, basically good practice installation. It is attached to Active Directory via an Open LDAP connector. And we are deploying via Bato, which is a deployment tool done by Flying Circus. The graph at the side, yeah, I put it there, but it looks actually overly complex. It basically says we have it's a virtual machine set up so that we can add additional rendering instances. The rest is standard. The main benefits for that organization, that's actually a very interesting part. It hooks into Guido's talk again. This Catholic Church Synod is a very blue organization. If you haven't heard Guido's talk before, blue means very conservative, very hierarchical, very control-oriented, top-down organization. I guess that comes from being a church. But at the same time, they kind of want to be green. They want to be people-oriented. They are very social, kind of outside their computer. Yeah? When they work together, they are very nice to each other. They want to communicate, but of course, they have the same limitations as other people. So before that, they were more or less using a file share and email to work. Now suddenly they jump to social intranet. So a real main benefit for them is a search. They can finally really search content, nothing new again. But the previews make this getaway from the file share really attractive, because in the file share, it was easy to access files, but it was hard to identify which is the file that I need, because I only have the file name to identify that. And that means that I need really good conventions, and everybody needs to understand these conventions, and I need a folder structure that everybody understands, and that usually doesn't work. So now with the search and preview generation, people don't have to do this pogo sticking anymore. They go into a folder, open a document, no, that's not what I looked for, open the next document, no, close again, go into next folder, open document. Because they just search for a keyword, and usually they recognize a preview. We have implemented external editor as well, so that they can open files directly in Word. However, they're not really using it. They find that they don't really need it anymore. Even what we are seeing a lot is that people are looking for some sort of information. They search, they find the previews, they read the information from the previews and don't even download the file anymore. Then the structured case process is a big win for them, because one side they actually had the requirement to behave properly and to document properly. Also the VIPs usually take the opportunity that they have, that there is no process, and just come last minute and say, can we please also take this into the session? It's important. And then the staffer, of course, says, yes, of course, you're the boss. And this is not possible anymore. It seems that VIPs are more likely to submit to some system prescriptions than to their employees asking them not to do it. Another big thing is it's available anywhere. File share, of course, is constrained to the office premises, unless you have some complicated VPN installed. That was also mentioned as a big win now. And then communication support. As you saw before, this social stream, it is actually used. People had some reservations in the beginning, like with everything that is new. Where will that show? Will people see it if they are not supposed to see it? And Plone Intranet employs a very simple concept here. If the post has been done in a workspace that is hidden to another user, that other user will not see that post. So you only need to know where you post it. Are you posting it on the homepage? Everybody will see it. Are you posting it in a confined workspace? Other people will not see it. Once they got this, they started posting as hell. And it's really funny what they are posting. They are posting stuff like, hey, we've been mentioned in that big newspaper and they are writing really good stuff about us. Everybody read it. They're also posting, can somebody please exchange that light bulb in the entrance because it has been broken for over a week now. And then they got comments, yes, I would like that too. I think it's really creepy in the night entering the office. Of course, you have to then probably also recall them a little bit and teach them not to put everything on that stream, but this is a learning process as everything. And the last thing that has been mentioned a lot is there's a very high user acceptance. People are really happy with that. And there is one final anecdote I have. They also hired an external usability company to make a test of the system. And this usability company first did an expert review based on an early version and the prototype. And they found that our concept is completely unusable. This will never work. They found that it is missing left column, right column. So there is no way to actually show context information. They found that the top navigation is way too limited. You cannot put long titles there. You need at least 7 to 9 points in the main navigation. There is no sub-navigation. The navigation is not consistent over the different modules. There must be a mega menu so that you can put rich context into the navigation and guide the users. And the library application, which actually starts with a lot of links and sublinks, will confuse users. And finally, they recommended to disable the social stream because this is something new for young people, and the older people employed at the church will actually not really use it because they are not main target group of Facebook and Twitter and so on. It was quite hard for about 3 weeks, 4 weeks, where we tried to fend that off and pulled up a real heavy discussion with them. They really came from that website background. This is a website, and but we say this Plone Intranet, that's not a website, even it runs in a web browser. This is actually an application. And we follow a path where we say the different sections or different applications in that Plone Intranet, they are allowed to look different. They are allowed to feel different. People should get a feeling where they are at the moment. And as a general rule, we find it highly unlikely that somebody is actually hopping all over the intranet all the time. Normally you have a task, you go in, you find the application where you want to work, and then you do your job, and then you do something else. Finally, they did the user testing. And they got real users, they got proper tasks, got a task list, what they should perform on the system. Took them about an hour to complete. And these users found that the system is refreshingly easy. They even mentioned that, oh, it's so good it doesn't look like Jive. They loved the library section, which was deemed confusing, because finally they don't have these welcome to the human resource section page anymore, which doesn't transport any content. They were really quick finding information in the library. But one person, they were able to operate the social feed successfully. That one person got confused with the search field and actually posted her search terms into the field. But I guess this is something you can learn. You do only once. So in the final user testing, the expert review was not mentioned anymore, and they happily reported about all the good things that came out of this. And with that, I want to say thank you. Please try Plone Intranet. If you have any chance, join the consortium and have fun with it. We definitely did. Any questions? Think you get a microphone?
When do we, as the Plone community, get a Plone Intranet to post stuff about the lights?
I think there was a discussion already. I guess Guido wants to smoothen up some things like commenting first, but why not? You can download it now.
Someone has to run it.
Sorry?
Someone has to host it and run it and maintain it.
Yeah, we get Flying Circus to do that. Anything else? Yeah.
I suppose you can set it, the Metromap, to never be allowed to trash any process if you need to store it for legal reasons or whatever reason.
Never to?
Never to trash it or never to delete. Yeah. Because we need to keep a record of everything that happened. So.
Yeah. The question is that can you keep your cases basically that they are never deleted? The good thing is it's standard Plone workflow. So if you're not allowed to remove it, it will never be removed. We actually did not expose a delete for workspaces and cases. It is possible to do it through Barceloneta. The Plone Internet project also got the theme switcher to work. Guido did a lot of head work into this. That means you can always switch to Barceloneta and also manage your content there, even though some Plone Internet stuff will not work. But that means you can still, the admin can still go there and delete stuff if necessary. But we just don't expose deletion. Yes?
So my understanding is that it's definitely designed around this green sort of community thing where you don't have the hierarchy, you don't have a way to sort of force news down people's throat. But if you do kind of want to have a little bit of mix of that, if you want to have the ability to have really important announcements that everyone sees, is that easy to do or is it planned or?
Announcements? It's really to do announcements in Plone Internet. I guess that's what we have the news section for. So on the dashboard, you always have the news portlet, which is fed by the news section. That is also thought of as the channel for the corporate internal marketing. That's where you create your news that are shown to everybody. You can, of course, also have workspaces that are visible to everybody, where you can post your work and make that visible to everybody. Plone Internet has a very nice way of easily select the security level of your workspace. You can say, do I want an open workspace, do I want a secure workspace, or a really hidden, top secret workspace? And then it makes a lot of assumptions that will work for 80% of the use cases again. And that's also a way where you can present your information.
So if you have an open workspace, does that mean that all the activity automatically goes into everyone's streams, or is it more like Twitter, you have to follow, you only follow the certain people and workspaces that you want to follow?
Both is taken into account. If you look at the stream on the dashboard, you can see everything that is posted there. You can see everything that is posted in your workspaces where you have view access, and it's filtered by the people you're following. Guido, is that correct?
Yes, so we support both. We support the Twitter equivalent of Explore and the Twitter equivalent of only people on call.
I've got one more question.
Can you repeat that?
is that we will support both. You you can filter by people you follow. And what was the second one? And show everything. Is that a setting we have? It's a switch.
So my second question is, are there plans for something like faculty staff directory where you can see hierarchy and you can view user profiles, less about the sort of contacts and who you follow, but more about more formal hierarchies and so on?
I'm having a hard time hearing it.
Sorry, I'm just saying faculty staff directory is something that allows people to view staff profiles in a hierarchical organization. Are there plans to have something similar in the Plone Intranet?
At the moment, not. We have user profiles. The question was, do we have something like hierarchical user profiles like faculty staff directory does? Currently we have user profiles which are flat in the system. We're using Membrane to have user objects. We are currently mainly exploring ways of structuring that using tagging and using a concept of endorsements and skills. This is not available at the moment, but designed. So that you can actively search for people with certain skills or by tags. But as we have user objects, I don't see why you should not have a possibility to create structure here. And that would probably be also interesting when we are looking at the org chart feature that Guido had in the roadmap. Any other questions? Then it's coffee break, I guess. Thank you.